monitoring humidity and temperature wirelessly using ESP Now protocol and two Xiao ESP32C3 boards. And I got for myself a DHT22 sensor for humidity and temperature measurement wirelessly. Monitoring humidity and temperature wirelessly using ESP Now protocol and two Xiao ESP32C3 boards. And I got for myself a DHT22 sensor for humidity and temperature measurement wirelessly. 12-volt fan speed control over Blink IoT Cloud with a ESP8266 board, of course using the driver L298N driver. So we are controlling the speed. It's working very well. Thanks. Volt fan speed control over Blink IoT Cloud with a ESP8266 board, of course using the driver L298N driver. So we are controlling the speed. It's working very well. Thanks. In this project, I'm using IoT remote from Arduino IoT Cloud to turn on and off phase LED. So the LED is controlled by Arduino IoT Cloud. I'm controlling also the LED matrix. So when the LED is on, the word on will appear on the LED matrix. Now when the widget button is off, the word off will appear on the LED matrix. In this project, I'm controlling a solenoid door lock using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. We are switch on and off the solenoid door lock of the internet using Arduino IoT Cloud, and I'm using the IoT remote app. So we have a relay module between the board and the solenoid door lock. In this second project, we are going to be controlling a 12 volt fan. Okay, so and it's working. So I'm controlling with Arduino R4 Wi-Fi over the internet, okay, using the IoT remote app from Arduino IoT Cloud. To drive the 12 volt fan, I used the power transistor TIP120 and a diode, of course a 3.2 kilo ohm resistor, so to drive a 12 volt fan. So I'm using Arduino R4 Wi-Fi, DHT11 sensor, a LED screen to monitor humidity and temperature. Temperature and humidity values will be displayed on the OLED screen. In this project, I'm using IoT remote from Arduino IoT Cloud to turn on and off phase LED. So the LED is controlled by Arduino IoT Cloud. I'm controlling also the LED.
your mom and dad to read that?
You know, the worst part is that my mother did read this, and she kept this away from me. I didn't even know this was in my apartment for the whole time that I was in prison. I came home to a box of letters that I had sent my mother, and attached to them was a little stack of mail that contained all of these letters. And as I read them, the first thing I thought was how strong my mother could have been to still continue forward, unafraid, unapologetic, standing up for herself, standing up for me, standing up for my brother and my sister. And she's always been like that. And I think that that's the real strength of what these types of things potentially
In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to use the L298N DC motor driver. To power the driver, we have the plus 12 volt connector, ground connector, and a plus 5 volt connector. Okay, so this is the plus 12 volt connector, ground connector, and the plus 5 volt connector. If you have to control two DC motors, so you connect one to output 2 and output 1, okay, the other to output 4 and output 3, so 3 and 4. So we have here the 5 volt select jumper, okay, the 5 volt select jumper. So the 5 volt select jumper determines how the driver, okay, will be power up, okay guys. So okay, now let's do the setup, okay. So you attach this wire to plus 12 volt, okay. So plus 12 volt can go from 5 volt to 35 volt DC, okay. So we grab another wire and we connect it to plus 5 volt connector, like so. Now we grab two wires, okay. I grab the first one and I attach it to the ground of the driver, okay. This is the second wire. So we take two wires and we connect them to the ground of the DC motor driver, like that. Now the next thing to do, so in this video I'm using one single motor, so you can use two motors, two DC motors, so but I'm using only one, and the output that I chose is out 3 out 3 and out 4, okay. Output 3 and output 4. Like that. So be patient. Sometimes things don't work as we expected, as we expect, I don't know. So okay, we are doing the setup, okay. The wire of the DC motor driver, I'm going to connect it to output 3, like that. Now the next thing to do, it's almost done, okay. So we grab our Arduino Uno. I'm using Arduino just to take advantage of its 5 volt pin, okay. So we don't need to upload any code onto it, okay. I want just to use its 5 volt pin to to power up the DC motor driver at its plus 5-volt connector. Okay, so I grab the jumper wire coming from the plus 5-volt connector. I attach it to Arduino pin 5-volt. Okay, so and one of the black wires coming from the DC motor driver, I attach it to one of the ground pins of the Arduino Uno. Instead of connecting the jumper wire coming from the plus 5-volt connector of the DC motor driver directly to Arduino Uno pin 5-volt, I'm going to connect it to this breadboard. Okay, so like so. Now we keep going. Okay, so now I can grab another jumper wire, and now I connect this to Arduino pin 5-volt. Okay, like that. Okay. Okay, now I connect the plus 12-volt from the DC motor driver to 7.4 volts. Okay, an external power supply, and the ground of the power supply with the ground to the ground of the DC motor driver. Now, to turn on the motor, I need to control one of the input pins. Okay, so I'm going to use the input pin 4. Okay, I feed the Arduino Uno, so I plug in this cable. So as you can see, okay, the DC motor is spinning. Okay, so even when I prevent the plus 5-volt connector from receiving the 5-volt coming from the Arduino board. Why is that? Because the 5-volt select jumper is in place. Okay, it is in place. That's why the DC motor driver is turning when that's why the DC motor. In today's video, I'll be turn on the motor. I need to control one of the input pins. Okay, so I'm going to use the input pin 4. Okay, I feed the Arduino Uno, so I plug in this cable. So as you can see, okay, the DC motor is spinning. Okay, so even when I prevent the plus 5-volt connector from receiving the 5-volt coming from the Arduino board. Why is that? Because the 5-volt select jumper is in place. Okay, it is in place. That's why the DC motor driver is turning when the plus 5-volt connector is not receiving the 5-volt power supply coming from the Arduino Uno. Okay guys, so now if I remove the select jumper, okay, I'm going to remove it, okay, the select jumper. Okay, that's the jumper, and now the DC motor driver stops. So the DC motor driver stops spinning when the plus 5 volt connector is now receiving the 5 volts coming from the Arduino Uno, and because the 5 volt select jumper is not in place. So if you remove the 5 volt select jumper, you will need to power the DC motor driver with 5 volt at the plus 5 volt connector. Okay, so in that case, the 5 volt power supply is coming from the Arduino Uno itself. So jumper is not in place, and the plus 5 volt connector is now receiving the 5 volt from the Arduino, so the motor stops spinning. Now, right now, okay, so you see it stops. Now it is spinning. Now if we put the back, okay, the 5 volt select jumper, okay, we put the back, okay. Okay, so okay, now even if you remove the plus 5 volt connector, the DC motor is still running. Okay. Okay, so even if we unplug the cable, okay, of the Arduino Uno, the DC motor will spin always. Why? Because the jumper wire, the 5 volt selected jumper, okay, it is in place. Okay, it is in place. Now if we remove the 5 volt select jumper, okay, it stops spinning. Why? Because when we remove the 5 volt select jumper, we need to power the DC motor driver at the plus 5 volt connector. Okay. Okay. Now, what I'm doing, so our power supply is 7.4 volt, right? Yeah, right. So when the power supply, when the plus 12 volt connector is receiving a power supply from 7 volt to 12 volt, and we leave the 5 volt select jumper in place, so the plus 5 volt connector will behave as a 5 volt output, okay, instead of a 5 volt input. So in that case, we'll be able to feed the microcontroller, in our case the Arduino, from the or at the plus 5 volt connector. Okay, So to power the board, okay, the Arduino Uno, when the 5-volt select jumper is in place and the power supply is between 7 volt to 12 volts, okay, so we need to connect, okay, this red wire to Arduino pin V in, okay, V in will be able to power up, okay, the Arduino Uno board, okay, from the DC motor driver, okay, the DC motor driver, okay, from the plus 5-volt connector is powering up the Arduino Uno board, okay. Like that. Now, to have the things work, okay, we need to put back the 5-volt select jump. So we put that in place, and the DC motor start working. Okay, guys. That's it. Okay, guys. So thank you so much. Bye bye. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to use the L298N DC motor driver. To power the driver, we have the plus 12-volt connector, ground connector, and the plus 5-volt connector. Okay, so this is the plus 12-volt connector, ground connector, and the plus 5-volt connector. If you have to control two DC motors, so you connect one to output 2 and output 1, okay, the other to output 4 and output 3, so 3 and 4. So we have here the 5-volt select jumper, okay, the 5-volt select jumper. So the 5-volt select jumper
No, I'm not wearing that. I don't have the jacket anymore.
I do like that
Kind
jacket,
of
so I'm just
cool to
asking
wear.
if it's available.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I dress nice. But yeah, no, Diddy offered it. He said, hey, Diddy loves the jacket. He's asking if you want to sell it to him right now. And I remember it was like winter outside, and I said, no, thank you, man. No, thank
You probably could have got a good price in that moment.
Maybe. But I think just taking off my jacket and selling it to another man right then and there just felt a little too weird for me.
But what is your sense about what kind of person he is now? Diddy, now he's made his money, made his wealth, made his fame, made his fortune. Has he changed from what you hear? Is he still the same guy? Again, I come back to what Mark Curry was saying, painting quite a critical picture of this guy, a control freak, disrespectful, treated everybody pretty much as lesser individuals. Is that your sense of Diddy, and is that what you hear about him?
Well, I don't really know Diddy. I interviewed him 10 years ago when he was first launching Revolt. I ran into him here and there. Ultimately, people are going to be people. I remember I had a conversation with Roger Bonds, who used to be his security guy, and we were talking about the whole allegations of abuse with Cassie. And what he said, what he personally saw, was that he'd be in the car with both of them, and then suddenly Cassie would punch Diddy in the face. And then Diddy would jump back there, and they would start scuffling and everything else like that. So, he's going to have messed up relationships just like the rest of us. Abusive relationships go both ways, but of course, when you're a man, you're always seen as the villain, even if a woman attacks you first. You see what's, 15 years later, Chris Brown still can't perform at NBA celebrity games because of the whole Rihanna story. So it's one of those things. I think ultimately he has calmed down quite a bit and he has mellowed out and so forth, but I think men are going to be men and people are going to be people, and if pushed to a certain direction, people are going to react how they're going to react.
Mark Geragos, you've acted for him. What kind of person did you find him to be?
Look, he is intense and he is hard driving, but you can say that, Pierce. In fact, I was watching a little bit about one of the other people that you've talked about. I mean, that goes with the territory. I mean, people who are successful share a lot of the common traits. One of the things that the picture that is being painted is not something that I have seen or experienced, but I've spent hours and hours over years representing him on various things and just haven't seen it. I mean, it's almost a caricature. Also, and to your question, the people that he surrounds himself with, I've known, met, and consider many of the people around him the highest quality people. I won't mention their names for fear of having them get into the crosshairs, but I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head who I just think the world of. So I'm not so sure that the picture that is being painted has any relationship whatsoever to the reality here. I understand that we live in an era where it is, you mentioned Chris Brown, and I represented Chris Brown in that incident with Rihanna. And Rihanna quickly, for those who don't remember, actually came to court to support Chris during those proceedings. I was there. She was at my office. We went to court. And, there's a forgiveness in the personal relationships that somehow doesn't seem to kind of spill over into other situations. And in Diddy's case, some of the things that I've heard are just so over the top and bear no connection to the things that I've seen personally that it's hard to reconcile.
If he is convicted of these kind of offences, sex trafficking and so on, they're obviously very serious. What kind of jail time could he be looking at?
Look, I always hesitate to speculate on things like that. I remember a client once, when my father was alive, he was my partner, and the client asked him, how much time could I do? And he told her, she came running into my office, your daddy scared me. And, I don't want to answer honestly. He hasn't been filed on. I fully expect, based on what I've heard so far, that we aren't close to any kind of a filing. So I'm not going to speculate, because generally in these kinds of cases, the prosecutor holds all the cards. I mean, that's one of the I guess, the beauties and the detriments of the criminal justice system federally in America is that the prosecutor can stack charges in such a way that you could go away for the rest of your life. It's a daunting amount of responsibility that a prosecutor has, and you always hope that they're going to exercise that responsibility in a way that they're not going to overshoot the mark, so to speak. He's facing very serious allegations. He's facing incredibly serious, kind of daunting, if you will, charges if they end up being filed. As of right now, the allegations are what are contained in a search warrant that is probable cause. Probable cause, I've joked before, I think actually with you, Piers, many years ago, that it's devolved to the point where I just say, is my client leaving for probable cause?
Right.
So we're not at a situation where somebody has been post a probable cause proceeding where you've been able to test the witnesses and the evidence. So I would tell everybody, take a deep breath. Let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Mark Garagos, as always, brilliant analysis there. And DJ Wright, great to have you back in Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good evening, Dr. MacArthur. Mark Renier, Simi Valley. Hi, Mark. There seems to be a resurgence of a certain book and a couple programs. You mentioned it in Fool's Gold, and I don't want to mention the book or the author, but you'll figure it out. Are we supposed to be more in touch with our heart, being more on the wild side, or are we supposed to practice self-control? Because it's going around again.
Well, is this the Wild at Heart kind of books?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a series of books. It started out with Wild at Heart, and basically it said that men should go out into the wilderness and live out under the starlight and camp in a tent and express sort of your inner savage as if this was some spiritual exercise. No, none of these books are really helpful at all. They're utterly misguided. Manhood is not basically achieved by abandoning all your responsibility and going out and staring at the sky. Manhood is achieved by taking full responsibility for everything that exists in your world. Abandoning things is just an old approach. It goes back to monastics and monks in the past who thought that isolation was the key to spirituality, when in fact spiritual development and spiritual growth and coming to the place of utter and complete abandonment to Christ and usefulness to Him happens in the context of the life of the church. And my argument with that, there are a lot of things wrong with that whole series of books, but the primary thing is the idea that God wants to develop our virtue and our sanctification in the fellowship of the saints, not in some isolated fashion. So that is the opposite of coming together, assembling together, stimulating one another in love and good work. So all of those books, you waste your time reading them because they create an artificial kind of spirituality that's been around for a long time.
To make this robot with Xiao ESP32C3 board using the protocol ESP Now, you're going to be needing two boards, two Xiao ESP32C3 boards. Get for yourself one L298N DC motor driver and 3.3 volt lithium ion battery for powering the receiver board. And you also need to power the DC motors. You need to power the L298 and DC motor driver with an external power supply. I got two 3.7 lithium batteries. Get for yourself 4 push buttons for the board. So on the receiver side, I attached the GPIO tool to input pin in one of the DC motor driver. GPIO 3 I connected to input pin in 4 of the DC motor driver. I attached the GPIO 4 to input pin in 2 of the DC motor driver. GPIO 5 to input pin in 3 of the DC motor driver. That's on the receiver side. And then you need to power the receiver board with this lithium battery, 3.3 volts. You attach the plus to 5 volts pin and the negative to ground of the board, our receiver board. So you also need to connect the ground of the receiver board to the ground of the DC motor driver. On the transmitter side, I attached the GPIO 20 to the first push button close to the board. The GPIO 8 with a third push button. The GPIO 9 with a fourth push button. At last, the GPIO 10 to the second push button. A very important note: you need to know the transmitter board need to know the media access control address of the receiver board, so that the ESP Now communication can be established. I'm using 2 DC geared motor. The left DC geared motor, its positive side is attached to output pin out 1, and its negative side to output pin out 2. The right DC geared motor, its negative side is attached to output pin out 4, and its positive side to output pin out 3. Let me show you how I created the sketches for both boards, transmitter and receiver. You gotta install the ESP32 boards to have the ESP Now library. These are my push buttons: down 1, GPIO 10, down 2, GPIO 9, push down 3, GPIO 8, push down 4, GPIO 20. So now I can remove those things. I don't need it. This info. So that's the media access control address of the receiver, aka MAC address. So inside of this extractor with the 4 states of the 4 push buttons, state 1, state 2, all the way down. Okay, so on data sent, okay, is the function that is going to tell us if the delivery, whether the delivery was success or not. If not so, it will print out failed. So the 4 push buttons are input pins. Down 1 input, down 2 input, down 3 input, down 4 input. And to print out the message, okay, we need the serial begin 115200, okay, to print out the messages. So once the ESP-Now is successfully initiated, we will register for send CB blah blah blah. Okay. So we're gonna register the peer. So now here we are creating the variable push button state. The push button state is a data packet variable. Okay, and the push button state will save the states of the push buttons, and we're gonna be sending the data, the push button state, to the receiver using the function ESP-Now send. Okay, that's the receiver code, as you can see here. So that's the input pins of the L298N DC motor driver. In 1 is attached to GPIO 2, in 2 to GPIO 3, 4, all the way down. Okay, and we need the states, state 1 and the state 2, all the way down up to state 4. So now we are inside of the function on data receive, right? Receive, I don't know. So we need we create again this variable called push button state, and that's the income data. Okay, so we're gonna print out the state of each push buttons, okay, coming from the transmitter code. Okay, we're gonna print out the state of each push button. Okay, so now to have the robot moving, so we use the if statement. Okay, if statement. In 1 up to in 4, okay, are output pins on my receiver board. Okay, they are output pins. So if state 1 is 1, so in 1 gets 3.3 volts, else gets 0 volt. State 2 gets 1, so in 2 gets 1, else 0. State 3 gets 1, so then in 3 gets 1, else 0. State 4 gets 1, so in 4 gets 1, else gets 0. Okay, so guys, so now I think we can upload the sketch of the receiver code. We wait a little bit, we wait. Okay. I think it's done. Okay, now let me see. Okay, now we upload the transmitter code. Okay, great. So it is printing out delivery failed. That's not good. Let me try uploading again. Okay. We wait. Wait for the 100%. Okay, now always deliver. I think I'm going to do that. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, delivery success. Okay, now let me do again the demo. phase robot with Xiao ESP32C3 board using the protocol ESP now. You're going to be needing 2 boards, 2 Xiao ESP32C3 boards. Get for yourself one L298N DC motor driver and 3.3 volt lithium ion battery for powering the receiver board. And you also need to power the DC motors. You need to power the L298 and DC motor driver with an external power supply. I got 2 3.7 lithium batteries. Get for yourself 4 push buttons for the board. So on the receiver side, I attached the GPIO to input pin in one of the DC motor driver. GPIO 3 I connected to input pin in 4 of the DC motor driver. I attached the GPIO 4 to input pin in 2 of the DC motor driver. GPIO 5 to input pin in 3 of the DC motor driver. That's on the receiver side. And then you need to power the receiver board with this lithium battery, 3.3 volts. You attach the plus to 5 volts pin and the negative to ground of the board, our receiver board. So you also need to connect the ground of the receiver board to the ground of the DC motor driver. On that transmitter side, I attached the GPIO 20 to the first push button close to the board. The GPIO 8 with a third push button. The GPIO 9 with a fourth push button. At last, the GPIO 10 to the second push button. Very important note: you need to know the transmitter board need to know the media access control address of the receiver board, so that the ESP now communication can be established. I'm using 2 DC geared motor. The left DC geared motor, its positive side is attached to output pin out 1, and its negative side to output pin out 2. The right DC geared motor, its negative side is attached to output pin out 4, and its positive side to output pin out 3. Let me show you how I created the sketches for both boards, transmitter and receiver. You gotta install the